Every October during National Fire Prevention Week, the Dearborn Fire Department hosts its annual open house. During this physical open house, residents are able to come to the fire station to explore our station, take a tour of the station, check out our state-of-the-art equipment and our top-of-the-line vehicles. At that time, it's also important for the fire department to provide residents with information about fire prevention, fire safety, and how to protect yourself in the event of a house fire. Unfortunately, this year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and public health concerns, the Dearborn Fire Department is unable to have a physical open house this year. But it's still important for us to get that information out to residents about fire safety and how to protect you and your family in the event of a house fire. So we are doing this video open house for residents to relay that information to them.
Now here's a look at one of the Dearborn Fire Department's newest fire engines that is equipped with all of the cutting-edge equipment.
Hello everybody, my name is Jim Rogers. I'm with the Dearborn Fire Department. I'm a fireman paramedic here, and today I'm going to show you one of our fire engines on the West End Station on Outer Drive across from Dearborn High. So on our fire trucks here within the city of Dearborn, we have three personnel. We have an officer, we have what we call a pipeman, who is a person that sits in the back, and we also have an engineer, or a firefighter 3. Their responsibility is to get us to the scene safely and work these levers. Now it seems complex, but it's rather easy to understand, but when we do have an actual fire, this person is going to be pulling the levers so that we can actually get water out of the hoses so we can extinguish a fire as fast as we possibly can. Some may ask why we have a lot of fire hose on our fire engines. Well, this is an example of some of the fire hose that we have currently in our crosslays. That's what we call these. So the advantage to this is quick deployment. So we can grab these, put them on our shoulders, and walk to where we need to be. So we have a lot of hose here so that we can go long distances if we need to. And I'll show you as we go around the fire truck, the more fire hose that we have, and some of the hoses that we have are really large in diameter so we can get a lot of water supply. So this is what we call a PO's compartment, the pump operator compartment. We have a lot of tools in here that the pump operator is going to be utilizing. We have a lot of adapters for our hose that go onto the fire hydrant. We also have cones, and we have a short section of 5-inch large diameter hose so that we don't have to stretch long distances to the fire hydrant itself. We have more nozzles up here just in case we have a large fire that needs a lot of different hoses and streams. We can utilize these. These are utilized to chalk the wheels so that the truck does not move when it's actually in pump. So we put this on either side of the tire itself, okay? And then this is called lineman's gloves. What we use that for is when we pull the electrical meter on a house, we want to make sure that we are protected. So realistically, we're going to put those on and use a special tool that's on another vehicle to pull the meter so that the house is degenerized. And some more basic tools right here in this toolbox. So this compartment holds a lot of the tools that we're going to be utilizing. This tool right here, what we use this for, we call this a D-handled pike pull. And what we use this for is to pull drywall, ceiling, things like that, just so we can get at the seat of the fire if it's up in the roof. This one we're going to utilize for a couple things. We can shut off gas meters with this end right here, or we can actually break locks with this angle right here with this tool. That's called a Halligan. And then of course we have the flat-headed axe. What this does is we can breach doors, we can utilize both of these together to break holes in the ceilings, things like that. So this is one of the main compartments where we're going to go when we actually do have a fire. So it's going to be two parts to this. On the back side we have a sledgehammer, and we also have more tools. Also back here is a pickaxe that we're going to use. So we can use this when we go up on roofs to actually start a hole in the roof so we can make the hole bigger with the tools that we're going to carry up with us, such as sledgehammers and maybe even the saw, which is going to be in the next compartment. So in this compartment we're going to have a couple different things that you might recognize. This thing right here is obviously going to be a chainsaw. So what we utilize this for mainly is going to cut holes in roofs. So we're going to get to the roof, we're going to start a little hole with the axe that I described earlier, and then this thing is actually going to start cutting through the roof. The purpose of cutting a hole in the roof is to get all those gases and maybe even the fire outside so the crews inside do not get baked. When I say baked, it's really hot inside, so we want to get all that that fire and that smoke and those gases away from the firefighters as much as possible so that it can be cooler and we can get to the seat of the fire. Now this thing right here, it looks like a giant fan, and that's the whole purpose of it. We're going to put it at the front door of the fire so that we can push those gases and that steam and that heat away from the firefighters as they're advancing inside the house. And then this one here, we call this a K-12. What we're going to utilize this for is to break or cut cars when the cars are on fire. We're going to start cutting roofs and things like that with the K-12 so we can get at the seat of the fire in the engine compartment specifically. So on the back side of the fire engine, we have this area right here, which is going to be where we store the main portion of our fire hose. You can see the yellow fire hose right there, which is going to be called our large diameter fire hose. That's going to give us a lot of water from the fire hydrant to the fire engine so that we can have a lot of fire to utilize it based upon the house fire that we have or the situation that we have. On this side, we have 2.5 fire hose, and we use that for, say, a garage fire. Okay, we're not going to, as long as it's not attached to the house, we're going to utilize that smaller hose for the garage fire. But if we need to, we can always upgrade to the large diameter fire hose. And the bigger the event, we're going to use the large diameter fire hose. So this compartment right here is predominantly going to be utilized for car extrications. These two things right here are going to be our extrication tools. Okay. Technology has advanced so much that now that we can use these as battery. We don't have to have a machine hooked to them like we used to many years ago. Now we can just take them anywhere we need to, and they're battery operated. This is going to be our cutters. And then this one right here is going to be our spreaders. Okay, we can utilize this to open doors, things like that. And then with this one, we're going to be able to cut pillars on cars. This right here, what we utilize this for is if a car's rolled over on its side, we're going to try and stabilize it before we start to work on people inside. And what this actually gives us is it's like a little step, and we can actually put these under the cars to stabilize the cars, and so we can go to work and get the people out safely. So this compartment is just going to be straight up fire extinguishers. We have different types of fire extinguishers based upon the situation or the incident that we're on. So we just have different fire extinguishers here. All of our rigs are equipped with fire extinguishers, so they all have the same capacity. Now these compartments right here, like I showed you on the other side, are going to be additional SCBA bottles. Okay, so we can actually utilize these as we need to and make sure that our packs are fully filled and ready to go if we ever need to go to the next run. Back-to-back fires is what I'm getting at. So this compartment is going to be multifaceted. So in this yellow bag here, we have a HighRise Kit, and what's in there is tools, phones, things like that, so we can plug in and talk to people within the floors, and also command, which is going to be on the first level. We have a cooler full of water for hot days, so that if we have a fire, that we can be rehydrated. And this one right here is what we call our pack in case the firefighter goes down. We have tools in here, but we have a longer lasting bottle, SCBA bottle, that we're going to hook up to a firefighter that's down so we can get them out as quickly as we possibly can, because typically you're going to be out of air when you're starting to breathe hard and work real hard. But if we ever have a situation of a firefighter going down, we're going to bring this bag in with us so that we can plug that bottle that's in there to the firefighter's harness so they can breathe air equally. All right, so this compartment back here is what we call a pipeman spot. So the person sits behind the officer, and the officer and the pipeman are going to be doing the main fire extinguishment inside the house or whatever situation might be. So inside our area here, we also have some additional equipment. We have some lights. We have what's called a thermal image camera, and what that's going to do is we're going to turn it on, take it in with us so we can see heat spots to where we need to direct the hose line, or we can also figure out where victims are if they're actually inside the house. That yellow thing right there in the center is going to be an air monitor, and that's able to tell us carbon monoxide readings, things like that, bad chemicals that we just can't see or smell that are dangerous for us. So we can sniff those things out. Also, we have SCBAs. Each one of those chairs has an SCBA right in the center, so we're going to utilize those when we go to fire calls. And then the department's made it easy for us to where we have an axe in each one of the doors, so we can just grab our axe and go right to work when we actually are on scene of a house fire or incident where it's needed. but also on this rig and all of our engines and ambulances, we're advanced life support. So on our vehicles right here, we have a cardiac monitor. We also have airway management that we can take care of, and we also have drugs. So we can give you medications and things like that to make you feel better. So we basically are bringing the emergency room or the doctor's office right to your living room or your bedside.
In addition to the fire engines that can respond to medical emergencies, each of Dearborn's fire stations have ambulances stationed there as well. They are also outfitted with the same state-of-the-art ALS medical equipment that is found in the engines, and these vehicles are used to transport patients when necessary. The theme for the 2020 Fire Prevention Week campaign is Fire Safety in the Kitchen. In keeping with this year's theme, here are some valuable tips every resident should remember when they are cooking.
The first thing we'll discuss is leaving cooking unattended. I recommend you never leave cooking unattended. We've had kitchen fires where people have damaged their homes and put themselves in danger by stepping out of the kitchen while they have an open flame on the stovetop. Any amount of things can happen. Things that you wouldn't even think can happen have happened. So when I walk out of the kitchen, I shut my stovetop off just to avoid boiling over of liquids, boiling over of oils, anything like that. Another thing is while cooking on the stovetop, turn these pots and pans to the inside to keep that from levering out like that and being able to bump into those. While cooking, I would avoid using robes, long sweaters, anything with long sleeves, baggy sleeves. You don't want to catch your sleeve on the pot handles, so anything baggy and loose fitting while you're using the stove as well could easily hang over the open flame if you had this front burner lit and could ignite your clothing. So I would recommend short sleeves. If you did have something long on, you could pull them up just to give yourself clearance and room to move. Avoid keeping towels, cookbooks, placemats, anything like that on the stovetop. Anything combustible, it is recommended to keep off the top of your stove. Along with that is storing things in the oven. I know that's popular. I know I have family members that do it. Limited counter space in some of the kitchens here in Dearborn. It's very easy to utilize this as a storage area. So when we open our stove up, we see that people like to store their newspapers, books, Tupperware. This is all combustible. Not everybody opens their door to check the oven prior to cooking. So if you're baking, roasting, set your oven to 350 or whatever temperature, walk away for a minute, let your oven preheat, and when you return, you've got your combustibles that you've stored in your oven and they are now ignited and you have a stove fire. If you do have a stove fire, this is an enclosed unit here. You can just leave this closed. There's no need to panic. Open this up and start running in circles. You just leave this closed. It's like I said, it's an enclosed unit, so this will be contained to the oven. And immediately you want to dial 911 and get the fire department to respond. In the event that something were to ignite, it's advisable to purchase a fire extinguisher and to keep it away from the stove. I've seen people store their fire extinguisher right here at stove level or near the stove. And if you have a hazard here on your stovetop, you don't want to run towards the extinguisher. You're running towards your hazard. You keep your fire extinguisher 5 to 10 feet away from your stove, and that keeps you out of danger, when going to reach for the extinguisher. They do sell smaller ones now, Home Depot and Lowe's. Online you can find them. They're just about the size of a hairspray, an aerosol hairspray can. Very handy. They expel enough extinguishing agent to put out a stovetop fire. And again, I just keep that in the corner somewhere on a countertop away from your stovetop. Another thing is using a pot lid to smother a fire. You'd want to avoid water. Grease, any grease that catches fire reacts with water. People have thrown glasses of water on grease fires and the fire will flash. Not good. Simply smothering the fire is your best alternative. Having a pot lid handy to just simply smother the fire. While cooking, it's advisable to keep children away from the stovetop and out of the kitchen area. In regards to cooking, moving from the stove over to the microwave. We all have microwaves in our kitchens. Microwaves are fairly safe. My only recommendations on microwaves would be to use microwave-safe plates and bowls. Some cookware is not rated for microwave use. Do not use foil or anything metal in a microwave. These are not rated for microwave use. This can cause fire, and we've seen that as well. And if a fire does occur in a microwave, it's best to unplug your microwave, leave the door closed. More than likely you'll be able to see flames from your window, an orange glow. Contact 911 immediately and exit your home. Here in Dearborn, the fire department is 3 to 4 minutes away, and we can remediate anything that happens in your kitchen like this. I hope you have a safe holiday and a safe fall, and just remember these are easy tips. Like I said, we become complacent in our kitchens and our day-to-day, but these are just mindful things to keep you all safe. With fall and cold weather approaching, a lot of us tend to use space heaters to heat areas in our homes. Avoid using space heaters near any furniture, bedding, curtains, blankets, clothing. These can easily ignite from the radiant heat coming from your space heater. It's recommended 3 feet between a space heater and any combustible materials. A lot of these units today are equipped with safety features. Some have tip-over devices that when the unit is knocked over, it will shut off. Some have alarms on them, but there are definite fail-safes to today's space heaters. Some older space heaters are not equipped with those. Just make sure that you look for those on those units. And if you need to upgrade, these are fairly inexpensive, and the newer ones are a bit safer than the older ones. When unplugging a space heater, it's recommended to not grab the cord and yank it out of the wall. It causes an arc. It's best to grab the plug itself and to wiggle the plug loose and simply unplug it. When you leave a room or the space heater is not in use, when you're going to work, going to sleep, even I know people like these on at night in their room to keep them warm, but again, it's unattended. It's best to shut the unit off and unplug it. I'd never leave the house with something like this plugged in. When using a space heater, children and pets, it's advisable to keep them a safe distance from the space heater as well. Also keeping a space heater out of your travel area. We all have hallways and areas that we, for instance, in a TV room, we all have areas that we kind of travel to get to the couch or to the kitchen. Moving these back out of the way of travel is advised as well, just to avoid, knocking it over or coming in contact with the front. A lot of these have metal fronts that become extremely hot, and again, touching these to the skin can cause injury. So just be mindful of that this season while using space heaters.
Let's talk about our hot water heater, right? A lot of people don't know that you can actually change out our temperature on our hot water heater. So right now, if this was set, this is at 150 degrees, and this one is actually automatic, that you can just push that button and bring that temperature down. At 150 degrees, it only takes a half of a second to have scald burns. So if you are an elderly population or if you're a child, having that reflex to be able to pull back is so much more critical at a high temperature. It's also really hard on the environment, which we're trying to help out, and bringing that temperature down to around 120 degrees. You still have plenty of heat to make sure your dishes are clean and that your baths can be hot and that your showers can be warm, but you're not gonna have a chance of scalding an older person or a younger person or someone that can't get themselves out of that water. At 120 degrees, you have to be in that for over 5 minutes before you start having a scald burn. So let's think about our water heaters. Go and take a look at that. If you're not sure how to do it, call a professional to come in and help change that down if you're interested in doing that. And I just want to talk a little bit about dryer safety. We do tend to run on a lot of dryer fires, right up there with our kitchen fires. When we are having some issues here, here's some of the main problems I want to talk about. Here's that dryer vent, right? That linen trap, if we want to make sure that's all cleaned out, when we have a buildup of the lint in here, this is highly flammable. They were going around, and also some kids on the internet were trying to eat these. They are very toxic to the body. We don't want to see our kids eating them. If something does happen where you do see kids playing with these, please call 911 immediately and let's go get that little one checked out. But be super safe. Let's go and keep these Tide Pods, keep your laundry detergent and all chemicals stored high or in a locked cabinet so little ones can't get a hold of it. We're we're going to talk a little bit about Knox Boxes today. This is a box that we're able to attach to your door by just hanging it over if you happen to live alone. If you're worried about falling down and not being able to open up your door, we can actually attach this box to your house. And this actually is a free program. We have about 35 boxes that we've already purchased for you, so you don't have that cost, and we just ask that you return it to the fire department when you're done using it. So this is a Knox box, and that is KNOX, and that is just the name of the company on this device. So this device can either be screwed in to the back of on the side of a house, but we choose to hang it because we're going to ask that you give this back to the fire department when you're done using it at any time. You can keep it for up to years. Doesn't matter for us how long you keep this box. So when this made out of structural steel, it's super safe, right? This was in actually our fire code books, and every fire department truck has a key to it. And when that key, when we arrive to your house, we know that you have a Knox box because we actually put a note in our dispatch system. So if you call 911 and your address comes up, we actually put a note in there that you have a Knox box on your location, and we know to grab our key out of the truck, and then we just use that to open it up, and then we'll have your key sitting inside. We're able to open up that door and keep it safe, so we know we can lock that door if you are needing to go to the hospital, that we can keep your property and your belongings safe. We're going to talk a little bit about generator safety today in case we have a big storm that comes through and possible down power lines. So this is a fire department generator. This is an automatic generator that's going to give us full power because really when 911 is needed, we need to be ready for you. So this is able to open up all of our garage doors and keep us active at all times. This might be a bit overkill for your personal home, but I do want to talk about generator safety for sure. So if you do have a power outage, first off, let's be very careful of down power lines. You can have a down power line a few poles down and still have your house having issues with like being backfed, or we call them brownouts if your lights are flickering. Be very careful. Try to unplug your big items in your home, such as your fridge or your stove, your air compressors, your air conditioning units. All of those have a big draw onto the house, and I don't want to see any of you lose your equipment in your home or possibly have a surge in your house to start a fire. We have had, unfortunately, some house fires get started by down power lines, and unfortunately we are not able to go in and fight that fire. It is too dangerous and it can hurt firefighters' lives. And unfortunately we just have to control that area by watching it burn. So if your house does have down power lines on it, please immediately call 911, get out of there, stay very safe, be very cautious, and don't go back in. Now, if you do have your generator and you want to bring that out, that everything is safe around you, we just have lost power and we're waiting for that to get back on, I want to be very careful of wind direction and where we're putting that generator. Have that outside of the house always. Never put a generator that is ran by gas inside of a building. Don't put it in your garage, don't put it in the basement, nothing in the kitchen. This causes your carbon monoxide. Right now with our detectors, we don't know if everyone has carbon monoxide in their homes. So this is where we have to be very careful because we are running a machine that we unfortunately have had some families die due to the generator being ran too close, and the wind was actually bringing that carbon monoxide into the home, and the family was breathing it in while they had no power. We're going to talk about how to get out of our house today, right? How to practice our family escape plan and how to make sure we are super prepared. Welcome to one of our smokehouses. Usually our third graders will come through here. We see everyone in the city of Dearborn and Melvindale. Every third grader will come through one of our two smokehouses in our department, and they're actually going to practice how to get out of their bed, how to feel for the ground, and what smoke does and how it operates, right? So smoke always rises, right? So we want to keep those smoke detectors on the ceilings and in our bedrooms, right? The fire code is that we want a smoke detector in each bedroom and one on each floor. Now that might be new for some of you. That used to not always be the case. It used to just be one smoke detector on each level of the house. But why that's changed is because we really have noticed with our fire science degrees that keeping our doors shut at night actually protects our bedrooms way longer than having that door open. So make sure we want to shut that door before we snooze, right? So Having that door shut though, also does not allow the smoke to come into your bedroom to have that go off. So we want to make sure that door is shut for all of our people at night and have that smoke detector inside. So if their fire happens to start in that bedroom, it is going to go off and alert the rest of the occupants that we do have an issue coming. All right, so we have one of our cadet programs. He's one of our newest firefighters here in the city of Dearborn, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to get out of a bed safely. So when we hear that smoke detector going off, we know that that smoke is heading at the ceiling right now, and it's wanting to come and bank down. Now, some of our smoke is so toxic in our homes that it only takes 2 breaths of that to get in our lungs before we go unconscious and not able to get ourselves out anymore, right? We start getting confused and we don't have time to breathe that smoke in. So if you hear that smoke alarm go off, what do you not want to do? We don't want to just sit up out of bed and say, what is that noise, right? So we want to practice what that smoke detector sounds like. When we want to get out of bed, we want to roll out of bed, right? So we hear that smoke alarm go off, he's going to roll out and get on the ground, right? Now, we have our little fire hydrant here. Make sure we're staying very careful when we do have our kids practice, and also when you practice at home. Usually there's a bedside table here. Don't hit your head on that table, right? You got to watch that corner, and you want to be real safe with that. So once we're down on the ground now, he's going to get on to his knees and his hands. Now this is the position we want to crawl in because it's going to keep his head facing the ground, right? It's going to keep his pathway clear that he's going to be able to see in front of him, and your hands are actively on the ground feeling for temperature changes and making sure you're not grabbing any of your toys or any of your stuff heading out of the house. At this point, when you get to the ground, you have one of 2 ways that you want to get out of that house. We're going to first always go for the door. Now, if that door is hot and he's unable to open it due to the heat or there's too much smoke on it, our second way out is always a window. Now, if that window, if you're on the 2nd floor, if it's too high, or if you're not sure how to open it, that is where you're going to sit and wait for firefighters' rescue. Because remember, if it's too hot for you to leave, that might not be our best way in either. We do have ladders on our truck that the first thing we do is we're going to put that onto the house. We'll put a ladder up to that window, and if our victim or our patient or our person is right there underneath that window, that's going to be the best place for you to be for us to find you. Remember, never hide from fire. Don't go underneath your bed, and try to always be at a window that you think would be right there. If you're able to open that window when the fire trucks arrive and let us know, hey, I'm up here, throw some toys out, throw some blankets out that we know that someone was up in that bedroom. That's going to be one of our first signs that we know someone was up in that bedroom. If we see an open window and stuff on the ground under it, we know that there was somebody up there. We're going to ladder that window first, or we're going to come inside that bedroom. It's one of the first things we're going to do even before we put out that fire. So there's some good tips if you are on the 2nd floor, what to do if we can't get out of that door. So we have our friend here. He's down on all 4s. Now we're going to get over to that door, and we're going to show you how to open the door nice and safe to get out of the house. We've crawled now from our bed over to our door, right? This is our first option we want to do. So the first thing we want to do is we want to line up that our backside is by the hinges of the door, because we're going to use this door like a shield. If I were to be right here on the door and I open it up, if there's smoke up there, I'm going to breathe that in. Remember, it only takes 2 breaths of smoke. So I have to be very careful, and I want to use this door like a shield as long as I can. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to feel the door with the back of your hand. Now, feeling that door with the back of your hand, there are a couple things happen. We're more sensitive on the back of our hands because we don't use it as much. If I use the front of my hand with all the working we're doing, right, sometimes it takes you a little bit longer to see, is that door really hot? Also, when we go to feel that handle, because that's the next thing we want to do, when we go to feel that handle, if it's hot and we grab it, I've now burned the palm of my hand, I have to go open that window. And now I have a burned hand. If I were to burn the back of my hand, it's a bummer. We're still going to use that, but 911 is coming. We can treat that burn, but we want to be able to use our hands now for that next operation because our house is on fire and we're stuck inside right now. So keeping the front of our hands not burned is really, really key. So he's going to feel the door with the back of his hand, and he's going to ask himself hot or cold, right? If he says cold, we go to the next step. We're going to feel that handle. He's going to ask himself hot or cold. If that's cold, we then go to the next step. He's going to open it up just a little bit, and he's going to look up. Smoke or no smoke? No smoke. He's now going to bring his face where that door is open. He's going to look outside. If he sees no smoke and no fire, right, he's now able to crawl out, and he's going to shut that door behind him because we want to keep this room safe as possible and smoke-free as long as possible. So when he goes out and shuts that door, he's now escaped and gotten out of that house. So a lot of our bedrooms don't actually go to an outside door, right? Our bedroom is gonna lead into a hallway, maybe through the kitchen. Maybe that's where the fire is, and we're actually not able to get out of the house that way. So having this door shut, we've now kept this room smoke-free as long as possible, and he knows he can come back in here, shut that door, and now I have a safe place to go until the firemen come and get me. All right, so we've just taught our little ones, or maybe a new employee, how to get out of a house safely, right? This isn't just for kids, this is also for our adults and anyone that's living in our house. And we want to practice this at least once a year if you're an adult. And if you have kids or elderly, we want to practice this every 6 months. We want to try twice a year that we want you in your houses practicing your fire escape plan. So I said welcome to the Smokehouse, and I want to show you why we call this a smokehouse. We actually have smoke machines inside these houses that are able to give off a tremendous amount of smoke. That's all, we call it clean smoke. It's actually the same thing DJs use, just our machines are pretty powerful, that we can actually fill an entire commercial building in about 3 minutes. So we're gonna see a little bit why we call this a smokehouse and what our third graders are going through and the type of teaching that we show them, and that they get to practice under real life conditions with a fire alarm going off. Usually we have a smoke alarm going off while we have the smoke in there to just try to simulate what it might be like if they ever had to crawl out of a house fire. All right, so he's going to start off with the sound of a smoke detector. And he crawls down. He's careful of that bedside table. Right, so now he's on all fours. He turns around, kind of gets situated what's going on. That smoke alarm would be going off this whole time now because we do have smoke in his bedroom. Now he gets to that door and he uses the hinges he's got his backside by the hinges, and he's going to feel that door with the back of his hand first. And he checked it if it's hot or cold. He said cold. Now if that was hot, if that handle's hot, he's going to stop right there, never open up that door. He's going to go to his window. So he felt that handle. It was cold. He's now looking up to check to see if smoke's going to come billowing in, and he's looking up because smoke is going to be it's going to be high up if that smoke's coming in. When he sees no smoke, he then is able to peer out and look outside of that door. He's checking for smoke and fire. If he were to see smoke and fire, he's going to shut that door. He doesn't, so he's able to go out and he shuts that door behind him. Shutting that door behind him, he's keeping his bedroom safe and smoke-free as possible in case he crawls around the hallway and gets to a corner where he cannot actually leave the house. He has to go back and retreat to his bedroom and wait for the fire department to arrive. So the first thing we want to do is if you were to catch on fire, say you walk by a candle, or if you're messing around with fire, or if just something happens, right? You walk by that kitchen stove and we weren't being careful like we should be, and we were to catch our clothing on fire, the first thing we want to do is we want to cover our faces. Now we want to do this to make sure that smoke and that heat doesn't go inside of our nostrils or our mouth, because that is how we can have trouble breathing. So we have to be very careful to make sure our airway is protected. So once our faces are covered, we're going to drop to our knees quickly, quickly, quickly. They're going to land all the way down and lay right down onto their faces, and at this point their faces are covered, and they're going to roll back and forth, and they're going to roll quickly, and they're going to roll until that fire is out, right? Their job is to smother the fire just like we would a grease fire, that we're not just going to dump water on people or have to go get water or whatever. We have to take care of this self. Fire loves to breathe, and we are making sure it cannot breathe by smothering it against that carpet, right? And not letting the air get to it. Okay, thanks guys. So our fire is out. At this point, we would then call 911 to make sure these guys have to get looked at and if they're burned, right? So thank you, be safe. I want to talk a little bit about usually my fire safety, but today I want to talk about medications and how to keep these safe in our house. So with us being home more these days and not so out and about, we have medications in the house. And how do we keep these safe? Maybe we go to our grandparents' house, or we go to a friend's house. How do we make sure we keep these safe from kids? First off, let's talk to our kids about we never take medicine that's not ours, right? So the first thing is that if your name is not on this, this is not your medication. If your brother's or sister's name is on it, or your mom's name is on it, it's still not your name. It has to be your name and your birth date in order for you to take these medicines. Now, if you are under 18 years old, you should be given this medicine by your parent, right? Someone that is in charge of you to make sure that you are taking it correctly and that we only take take it exactly how it says to by the doctor, right? So who gives this medicine, right? This is given by doctors, right? Doctors write a prescription to the pharmacist, and then we go pick it up at the pharmacy. Sometimes it's like a CVS, Walgreens, even our Kroger's, right? They have pharmacies in there, but these are given by a doctor. We don't ever take medicine that if someone gives us pills from a bottle like this, and they're not a doctor, it's now a drug. So if you are taking medicine that was not prescribed to you by a doctor, I want you to understand that you are actually taking drugs at this point. Now, drugs can hurt us, right? They can kill us. They can make us stop breathing. We can overdose with them. Medicine is very specific to each person that takes this. So I would never want to just open this up, and if my friend thought I might feel better, or maybe my back hurts, and they have some pain pills for me, and it's in a container like this is a prescription med. So prescription medicine is super dangerous for us to take outside of if my name's not on it, because maybe I'm allergic to it. These can be very powerful medications. We can also become addicted to it, right? So it changes how my brain works. So I don't want you to ever take medicine that's not prescribed to you out of a container like this. We also want to be careful that if we're home, a lot of our bottles, our pill containers can just untwist, right? This is actually a container that is made for people that have their hands don't work real well. So all they have to do is easily open it, right? There's no child locks on this. So if you have your kids going over to a grandparent's house, or maybe we're just going to a friend's house, that we want to make sure all this has been put away, because we cannot depend on that child lock, right? Kids are very smart. I have some myself, and I can see them opening things up. So make sure we are putting these medicines locked away in a cabinet and put out of child reach. But also talk to your kids about, don't take pills like this, right? Out of the house, right? You don't take pills, you don't give them to your friends, right? We want to be really careful with this. We've seen way too many kids overdose on medicine, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. So please go out there and be safe and practice safety with your prescriptions. Thank you. We are going to talk a little bit about why do we always see a Dalmatian as a mascot with the fire department, and like, where did that come from? Out of all the dogs we could choose from, how come it's that Dalmatian that we constantly see? So what happened is, when fire departments, before we had our trucks that were all electronic and we had the lights and sirens, we had a Dalmatian, and we had horses and we had wagons that the firemen came from, usually out of an old barn downtown. So we have this great history. It's a very traditional job that we've had. We've had fire departments around for hundreds of years. And that Dalmatian was actually a really fascinating dog, because most of it was kept the horses company in the barn, and we could train that dog how to smell smoke. So when a call would come in, that Dalmatian would know that the bells were going off and it's time to go to work. Now, when the firemen were getting ready to get those horses all geared up and get the pump and all the water and all the pumps coming to the fires, that Dalmatian would clear the streets. When people would be able to see that spotted dog in the middle of the road, they would know to clear the roads out, and that was the first horn and whistle and the bells. That's how we cleared the streets, when they had horses or we had to get people off the road. So when people saw that Dalmatian in that spotted color, right, it was really notable. It was a really different looking dog. It wasn't just a brown or a black dog. And those markings were so traditional on it that all of a sudden that became known as a fireman dog, right? We still see black labs, or we see retrievers and some other types of dogs helping us with assisting with fires, but that Dalmatian is always that iconic Sparky. So we have Sparky here today to just be supportive and to show the kids of like why we're here, but that's a little bit of history about this cool job that we have, and how the fire pup helps us out in talking to kids and keeping them safe. It's a good time to talk too about animal safety, right? If you're a young one and we don't know about how a dog comes up to you and you're not sure, you should never really reach for a dog right away, right? You want to be very careful and very cautious, and let that dog check you out too. Remember, they're also scared because you could look like a different person or smell different than they're used to. So if they have any signs of aggression, or if you're not sure who that dog is, always ask permission from the handler of the dog, the adult of the dog, and ask them if it's okay if they can pet the dogs. And If you do get bit, please call 911 right away. We want to make sure that you're safe, even if you're not sure if it's not that bad. Just give us a call so that way we can come check it out and make sure that you're okay, right? If you ever see a dog loose, please also call 911. We have a great canine patrol in the city, and they take care of our animals that we want to make sure they're safe too, because if we have a dog out running around, we don't ever want to see it get hit by a car or have anything happen to it. So let's just keep our animals safe, keep them under the right spot, and thanks for joining us today.